Hi, everybody. Hi, LEC community. This is Christy Moreno. I am very honored today to step in and have this really wonderful conversation with a wonderful guest. As you know, this is your Ask an Educator program, and we're delighted to have a very special guest here today. I would like to welcome Maestro Joaquin Cuni, who is local here to our metro area in Kansas City. Welcome, Joaquin. Thank you so much for gracing us and honoring us with your time in this very special space where we connect with Latinx educators, not just in our metro area, but really everywhere in the country. So, bienvenido, Joaquin. Thank you so much for being here with us.
Muchas gracias. Thanks for inviting me. Buenas tardes.
Muy buenas tardes. Well, we would like to just jump in with this conversation and start with, talking a little bit about how you got into education, what sparked that interest and passion for dedicating. You mentioned 21 years
Yeah,
devoting.
25 total. Yeah, 21 in North Kansas City School District.
And
But I have 4 years when I just moved to the States in Alta Vista Charter School. It's been a while, 25 years.
So tell us, how did this journey begin for you in education, and what got you into this sector? Such an important place to be as a leader in education. Tell us about that beginning.
Well, I'm originally from Chile, and when I went to college, I had so many choices. So law was one of them, social work, and history. That's my original degree. I'm a history teacher by trade. When I applied, I just went to school of history. And for a while, I thought, I can be an anthropologist, I can be an archaeologist, because there were so many choices. But when I did my teaching practicum, I realized, oh my God, this is me. I'm going to be in the classroom. I'm going to be a history teacher. So then I applied for jobs, but they were requiring 2 years of experience. So I said,
Yes.
I want to get a job here in Ohio. And then the government, the new democratically elected government, because in Chile it was a long dictatorship for 17 years.
Yes.
So they were recruiting young professionals. And I applied for a job at the Department of Labor, and I got hired. And I spent 6 years working for the Department of Labor. Then I met my wife, who is originally from Kansas City, and we decided to move to Kansas City. And then I said, okay, what can I do in this country? And I said, I'm a teacher, so I wanna go back to what I love. And I had the fortune to be hired by the great Uziel Pesina, and he gave me the chance. So I spent great years teaching at Alta Vista. And then I decided I wanted to just be in a bigger environment. And I applied for North Kansas City, and I've been teaching there Spanish since then for 21 years. But
I will.
that's my story.
This is just the beginning of your story, and I will shout out Dr. P, Dr. Pesina, un saludo, a great
Great friend.
collaborator, great leader, a great friend, a great musician,
Yep.
um, and someone that I know has touched the lives of so many.
Hmm.
Um,
I always call him Jefe. Everywhere I see him, hola Jefe.
yes, that's great. You mentioned your story of coming from Chile and then coming to this country and starting your teaching career in this country here, while you
Hmm.
bringing teaching experience that you had in your country of
Hmm.
origin, in Chile. Tell us a little bit about how you experienced the difference in the classroom in Chile and the classroom here in the United States.
Well, you know, you always had the perception about American schools based on what you see on TV, Dangerous Minds, so all the very archetypical, stereotypical movies. But when started working in North Kansas City, I noticed a difference. So Alta Vista was mostly Latino students, and then Northtown back then was very white, right?
Yeah.
So I noticed a difference, and of course, way more activities, a lot of focus on sports, uh, and in that regard, there was a difference with my experience as a student back in my country. The emphasis on sports, it's like it's like a athletic club. Everyone cares deeply about sports. But I learned to understand that and incorporate it into my own teaching. But essentially, almost the difference. I mean, the buildings are bigger. In my country, you have like two shifts, you can call them. So some of us go in the morning, some of us go in the afternoon. But
Hmm.
here, everything is in the morning. No uniforms because in my country, I had to wear uniforms since I was in kindergarten all the way to my senior year in high school. But yeah, basically that. I mean, I think I adapted pretty quickly. I think the fact that you're teaching a foreign language, that's a good way, to become one more of the teacher, the staff, and the students understand. Hey, this is a guy with an accent. He's from Chile. He's teaching us Spanish. Yeah, it's cool. So
Yeah.
it was an easy transition.
Yeah, yeah. So you mentioned Altavista, which now is has a different
Guadalupe
name.
Center.
It's part of the Guadalupe Charter Schools education system, and I know it's a system that has grown. And like you said, primarily serving Latino students, not necessarily always Spanish-speaking or bilingual
Hmm.
students, right? And then you transition to North Kansas City, which I think you have seen evolve in its demographics,
Hmm.
growth, and its multilingual students. And
Yep.
so tell us a little bit about how you've seen North Kansas City School District evolve throughout time, how that has shaped the culture of the schools, of the classroom, and also how that has shaped the importance of representation and Latino representation, as well as other race, ethnicities, and other demographics that are important. How have you seen it grow, evolve, and what has been the impact of that range of diversity in the classroom?
Well, we praise ourselves of being the most diverse school in the state of Missouri, and I think we are. And of course, being there for 21 years, I saw a transition. Uh, the only Latino teachers in Northtown were those teaching Spanish,
Yes.
uh, and it was three of us, right? And not many Latino students at that point. But I decided to start teaching uh, Spanish for heritage speakers. So that way, all those kids who were newcomers came to my room and started creating a community with them. Because there were not many of us right there. And now it's way different. We have a club, we have the Latino Student Union, so we've been working with those kids for many years. But yes, you see a transition of American cities, how the students of color start coming and how many of them don't speak the language. So they tend to come to you, they see you as a father figure, or that's important representation. They don't see an adult who they can rely on and trust. And I think that's very important. But I'm happy to see that my high school is so diverse. Now, diversity doesn't mean necessarily there's inclusion, right?
Yeah.
Uh, but that's a work in progress always. I always tell the kids, I mean, don't stop at diversity. You need to keep on pushing. Inclusion is different. That means we get to sit at the table, but we have a say in what we're gonna eat. Actually, we can choose the menu. So that's a work in progress.
That is music to my ears when you say diversity is not necessarily inclusion, and then we jump into belonging, right? And so you were talking about the range of diversity as it evolved throughout time and the importance of inclusion. Can you think of maybe a story or an anecdote just that has stuck with you where you have met the challenge of maybe as an educator yourself in your profession amongst other educators, or maybe as a leader in the classroom, right, with your youth, where it has been like a wake up call, like this story is impactful, this happened one time in the classroom, this interaction really like sparked this interest in me to become more of a leader, and also to push for that inclusion and belonging.
Um, a few years ago, when the Trump administration was putting kids in cages, we have a different of opinion within the Latino community. Uh, so some kids thought that was misrepresenting the Latino community because not all Latinos are undocumented immigrants, right?
Yeah.
But then you had the core group of Latino students who wanted to highlight the fact that, uh, the government was coming after our communities and separating families. So it was kind of hard to address the issue. There was a lot of tension. And I think at some point we all have the opportunity to grow.
Yeah.
Because, we are not a monolithic group. We have different opinions, different political views. But there was a challenge because, there was a lot of feelings hurt, and even, some of my colleagues had different perspectives on the issue. Some of them were very supportive, but it's like a microcosms of what's going on in the country, right? It's like at that point, people are totally fine with that kind of initiatives, but me and many of my students were totally against that. So we were trying to, to make people reflect and think of what was going on. So we had some posters in the building, so some people didn't like that. Yeah, that was a challenge, but also an opportunity to grow.
Yeah. Yeah, and that we're living a time where I think that has increased, and
Uh-huh.
that the dialogue within our Latino communities, and like you said, we know we're not a monolith. We That's why I always like to pluralize Latino
Hmm.
communities,
Yeah.
because we have such different perspectives,
Hmm.
experiences. A Latino student might be third, fourth generation. One might be a newcomer.
Exactly.
And so creating those spaces where students feel like they belong, no matter their generation, no matter their skin tone, no matter what
Hmm.
language that speaks. Sounds like a very romantic idea, but I know it's challenging, right?
It
And so
is. It is.
what is one of the ways that in your instruction, or an example that you can share with us, you have helped students connect with each other? Is there an exercise that you have? Is there a piece of literature that you read, that you share? Just some ideas that maybe may spark some more creative opportunities for other educators listening to you and to this conversation today.
Uh, One of the activities I did a couple of years ago was to tell your story uh, as an immigrant.
Hmm.
And some of my kids told me, Mr. Cooney, I'm not an immigrant. I mean, I just was born here. Yeah, but your parents, your grandparents, someone came to this country originally as an immigrant.
Yeah,
So I told them, because, have different skills level when it comes to speaking Spanish. So I said, you can write in Spanish, English, Spanglish, or whatever, right?
yeah,
We want to put together. And they wrote the stories of their families. Some of them asked their grandparents about it, and we put together like a little book. And we made some copies. It was very, modest
yeah,
thing, but it was meaningful. And the kids were happy just by reading the stories of their classmates. So I think that's kind of a unifying factor. I mean, no matter your individual experience, we all share something in common, is that someone in our families was the first person who came to this country, you know, searching for better opportunities. So I
yeah,
think that's important to get connected, And I always tell my kids, I mean, we are different. We have Cubans, we have kids from Venezuela, we have Central American kids, a few South Americans. We have different stories, but there's a common factor behind us. Everyone came here because they wanted a better future.
yeah. That is very true. That is very true. And I love this example that you're sharing, not just with us, but with other educators here, the power of that storytelling, right? Because we hear
Hmm.
all these rhetorics, we hear the narratives that are not necessarily positive sometimes. But for so many people, those are very distant stories. They don't really know the person, they don't really know the connection. But the power of the classroom, I think, is very, very, very important. Now,
Hmm.
talk to us a little bit about the power of your network with educators. How has that been through your journey as an educator here in this country? And tell us some maybe some moments where it has been a challenge to feel included, understood, and also maybe a moment of triumph as an educator and leader in the schools where you have served.
Yeah, in terms of networking, I think what LEC does is a great opportunity to get to know other teachers from the KC Metro area. So I try to participate as much as I can. I teach in the Northland. I think when there are not many Latino teachers up north.
Yeah.
But in my high school, some of my Latino colleagues retired, but there are, new blood coming in. So I think now we're kind of four Latino teachers in my school, which is, great for representation.
Moving up.
Uh, yes, it's great. And I always think, sorry, I always think about that, A's. Someone has to come and, and replace the old generation of teachers. Uh, but I think the sense of belonging is impacted by the fact that you don't have a close community. And not necessarily I'm talking about having other Latino teachers with you, but people who can understand your experience as a teacher and as an immigrant. Uh, so basically, they include you, humanizing your experience. You
Yeah.
know, sometimes they tend to see you, this is a foreigner, but they're not willing to get to know you more on a deeper level. And that happens because there are many teachers who may be the only African American teacher in the school
Yeah.
or the only Latino in school, and it's sometimes hard to make connections because the culture experience are so different. But I was fortunate to have a group of colleagues and friends who had a more global perspective of the world,
Yeah.
and a better understanding what's going on in the world. So I felt the sense of belonging with that group, and I think that's important. Uh, you need to have accomplices, people
Yes.
who are going to be willing to do the work with you. And I've been very fortunate to have people, and I'm very happy there are young teachers coming to my school who have the same attitude and the same approach to what is teaching and engaging with students. So
I
I'm very fortunate.
Yeah.
Now, also,
Yeah.
you always feel tokenized, of course.
Oh
They
yeah.
always think you are the voice of the Latino community. But when they say, hey, I'm a guy from South America, I'm from Chile, my experience is not the same as other kids or other teachers. But that always happen. In every single institution you are related to, there's the idea of the tokenization of people of color, which is not necessarily representation, right? Yeah, hey, you are the talking, so we need a face of color who's going to be here. So we still need to work beyond that and basically acknowledge that we have capabilities and skills that allow us to do certain work beyond our color, right?
Yes.
Or
I
race or ethnicity.
I'm thinking about several things that are stemming out of the words that you have mentioned, and I will go with the first part of it, which you mentioned the importance of, as an immigrant and an educator coming from a different system, different cultures, different experiences, different societies, the importance of having that global mindset and bringing that to the
Hmm.
classroom.
Yeah.
Um, can you tell us a little bit more about the importance of really looking at education as a global experience, as a unifying experience, as us putting the hat and really the thought that we should be educating our students to be global citizens, right? To be globally competitive, to feel like they're part of not just a school district, not just the city, not just the state, not just the country, but part of the world. And I would love to hear what you think about that and how you incorporate that global mindset. Obviously, when we think of heritage speakers and Spanish classes, it's kind of easy to go that path, but really through language, bringing this experience to get out of our bubble and see the world from different perspectives. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, in my school, I teach in the B program. We offer the B program, and one of the attributes that we want all the kids to have is global mindedness. Uh, how usually with my students, I always think about something Pablo Neruda, a Chilean poet, used to say that he was not necessarily a Chilean citizen, but rather a citizen of the world.
Yeah.
And I always tell the kids, we are citizens of the world, all right? Just by accident, we were born in the country. But I always try to highlight the experiences of many Latinos in the world, not necessarily in the United States. And
Yes.
so there are many of us who live in Spain, who live in other countries in Europe. So we're everywhere. Uh, we Chileans praise ourselves, but hey, we think that there's a Chilean in every country in the world.
Yeah.
Uh, but I try to basically to teach that we it, our actions have an impact not necessarily on our community, close communities or community at large in a city or a country, but globally. And our dreams and hopes also have an impact in the world. So anything that you can do to make things better, it's going to have an impact at a larger scale. Um, and that's why I like my kids to do a lot of research on things that happen in the world. So, for example, I'm now going to focus if I'm teaching a unit on immigration and the experience of Latin Americans crossing the border or coming to the United States, but also the experiences of Africans coming to Spain, to Italy, and we discuss the issue with racism, oppression, things like that, and what we have in common with other communities that are not necessarily Latinos. So I think that gives the kids a global perspective of what's going on in the world. So we're not isolated.
Yeah.
We're trying to make those connections based on our own experience with other communities.
Yes, yes. Thank you so much for sharing that. I always like to ask that question because um, I always like to even as a parent, right, with my own kids who happen to be teenagers and high school age, and I'm going to get into that here in a moment. Um, but the importance of seeing ourselves as part of a global community, right, not just very siloed or very local, and that everything we do, everything we say, our impact does not just affect our immediate communities, our immediate surroundings, but it really has an impact in the world. I wanted to ask, so you mentioned you're a high school teacher now, and you mentioned Alta
Mhm.
Vista, which we know was, well, it still is, but with a different name, a high school. Have you always taught high school, and or have you taught other grades? And the second part of that is, what has been your favorite experience and what ages?
Always high school. I admire elementary school teachers. I admire middle school teachers above all, because I think that's one of the hardest ages to
Yeah,
teach. So I couldn't see myself teaching middle school uh, or elementary school. Uh, I love high school
yeah.
kids. I mean, that's. And some people say, "Oh my God, it's so hard. They're teenagers, always angry." No, some kids are amazing. I mean, and I'm fortunate to have the opportunity to teach young kids. But that's what I love. So I'm always a high school teacher.
That's wonderful. I love hearing that. You certainly, it sounds like you have a passion for high schoolers and those ages, and we know that during that stage of life, kids are already, shaping their character. They have their opinions that they're forming. They're listening and soaking in, but also using a lot of critical thinking and analytical thinking skills that we hope are also nurtured in school, right? And so, a question I have for you is, I know because here at the LEC we do a lot of studying, we do a lot of conversations, we read a lot, we write a lot, and we know that since the pandemic, things have shifted, not only in the education realm, but just with everybody, with society, with social and emotional and academic, the health of those things in our classrooms. And so, can you maybe think of some experiences or some challenges that, or some examples where you have seen that shift and that impact that the pandemic had on our youth, particularly?
Uh, the first thing that comes to mind is mental health. Uh, I think there was a decline in mental health. Uh, I think being isolated had a profound impact on people's emotional health, not only young people, adults. It
Yeah,
was hard, and witnessing what was going on, the experience of so many people dying, and how things were, managed by the administration at that moment is it was sad. It's sickening. That's one of the things. And in addition to some kids say, hey, I love being at home. Uh, and that's because some of the kids are more introverted, so they're going to be fine. But I think most of them, I would say, suffer from like a learning decline or some learning gaps that we are kind of trying to fix nowadays. Uh, um, if you add technology
Mhm.
and the use and overuse of technology, I think we have a learning gap that we're witnessing, and the reading levels are very low. And I would
Yeah.
say it's not only in urban schools, happens everywhere. So kids are not reading, and that they have an academic engagement that's way different to what it used to be in the past.
Yeah.
Um, I wouldn't say there's no resilience because I like to say that kids are resilient. They have life experiences that are uh, troubling,
Mhm.
but they're survivors. Many of them are survivors, so they have my respect. They are resilient. Their approach to school, to education is different, and I think for some of them it's hard to see the value of education, and they think that it's not necessarily important to have an academic placement in your life. Like maybe some subjects are not necessary. It's like basically we're questioning the validity
Mhm.
of schooling. Like
Yeah.
maybe school is not necessary, and they may have a point, a valid point. I'm not saying, hey, we should get rid of school. We need to keep the schools forever, right? But maybe we need to make some changes and give the kids more agency when it comes to their education and choosing what they want to learn. But to me, yeah, that's it's worrisome because if you stop reading, that's going to impact your ability to be a critical thinker,
Yes.
and you're
And
going
to
to
engage in society.
exactly. So the concern is, yeah, the future generations may lack the critical thinking that is necessary to question authority or to be, creative, involved with your community. So
Yes.
that I think, yeah, is we always talk with some of my colleagues about all this issue, and I've been reading a lot about it, watching documentaries. But yeah, it's worldwide.
It is worldwide, and I'm glad you're mentioning that because, of course, we're living here in the United States, and we talk about very local, very just national impact of the things we've experienced, the pandemic, and
Mhm.
wars, and all the things that we have seen. But you talk about systems and the importance of evolving with time, right? Evolving systems, and so I also know that you are a leader for educators, and you're very
Yeah.
active in your union. Tell us a little bit about that, how that has been a tool for you also in impacting the experience of educators. But also, I want to hear a little bit about inspiring young people to maybe take this path in education and become leaders in the classroom as well. How has your involvement in teachers' unions and really looking at that network of educators, how has that transferred to the way you teach, the way you inspire younger people to follow the path and be a leader in education?
Well, one of the things I have learned by being involved in the MNEA or NEA nationally, so I'm a member of my local, and I'm a board member of the state of Missouri too. One of the main things I have learned is that I think it's a reflection of what's happening in this country in politics. There are so many differences between someone who comes from the West Coast, East Coast versus people in the Midwest.
Yeah.
So you see those same differences when it comes to approaching innovation or change or challenging systems in our country. Uh, it's the typical thing, West Coast, East Coast are more liberal, and here in the Midwest we tend to be more conservative. But also you learn that in other states people are like steps ahead of you in terms of trying new things. They may have more resources, uh, but one of the essential questions we always ask ourselves within the Hispanic caucus of my union is how we increase the numbers of Latino educators. And I know African American teachers ask the same question.
Yeah.
And it's not an easy because we always say let's target some universities like HBCUs or some universities on the West Coast where you know the Latino numbers are higher. Uh, but I think it is still hard. One, because the salary of teachers is too low, and kids nowadays are way more pragmatic. Uh, you know, when I be talking to a kid now about a calling, this is your calling, you're coming to this profession. The kid said, no, I cannot live with that. And it's valid. But I also think when you're a student of color, Latino, a black student, uh, sometimes your experiences in high school are not great.
Hmm.
And because of that, you don't see yourself coming back as a teacher.
Yeah.
I think as long as we make sure that they're having a great experience as a student, when they feel valued, protected, included, it's going to be easier for us to go to a university and try to advertise our profession. Please come back and teach because we need teachers of color. Uh, that's why the numbers are not going up.
Yeah.
It is, you know, it is hard. But I think it's a combination of factors. I think salary, uh, the fact that sometimes the experience in high school was not great. It's like they want to stay as far as possible from a high school, from a school. But it's a conversation we had every year. What we do, what should we do? And I don't know. There are many possible solutions and many recipes to improve the experience of future educators of color, but I don't know. It's
There needs
hard.
to be investment, right? We think of. I always like to talk about a school budgeting, right? Like, and
Yeah.
I have this phrase of like, I will see what your values are when I see how you budget, right? And how you allocate those investments. And I think is very true. I think what you're saying is very true. It is a reality that it has been a challenging field in the last several years. But you mentioned something that I think is important, and is is that point of it's hard to for young students seeking a career pathway to see themselves in education when their experience has not been the best. First, a question for you: was there an educator in your life, maybe back in Chile, that really planted that seed in you, that was that guiding light for you, that you still remember that teacher, you still remember the tone of their voice, one of their lessons? So was there someone that impacted your life in that way while you were in high school?
Uh,
Perhaps?
yes, I would say my homeroom teacher, who also was my social studies teacher, was very impactful. Uh, she uh, she was very close to my mom, so she knew me. She knew all my secrets. So every time I was misbehaving or doing something that I shouldn't do or shouldn't have done, she basically told me the truth. Like, she was brutally honest, but she was right. She was on the spot. She got me, and that honesty, I knew she cared about me and wanted me to be a better student. And I appreciate until today the fact that she was so honest and she was willing, to say what she was supposed to say, uh, to make sure that I was basically on the right path. So she was one of the greatest role models, and we're still connected until today.
Wow, that's incredible.
Um, yes, yes,
How
yes.
wonderful. And she knows you're an educator and you've been in
You
education
know,
for.
as I'm a teacher, I went back to high school to see her and I say,
Oh,
hey,
wow.
I'm studying to become a history teacher. So I saw some of my old high school teachers. Yeah, she knows that I'm a teacher.
You brought into the story your mother, right?
Yeah.
And the LEC, we have our sister affiliate organization, Revolución Educativa, or REVED, that does a lot of family engagement. We do a lot of work connecting with parents, with Latino parents from different experiences, right? Whether they're newcomers to the country, whether they've been here all their lives, second, third generation, but really connecting with them for a variety of ways. But the main thing is that we know that that family and that caregiver and parent, not just engagement, but really team building is critical
Uh-huh.
to the success of our students. And so can you give us just can you enlighten us as a very experienced, a very impactful educator on the importance of parents being involved and engaged and connected in the educational experience of their children?
It is. It's not going to be a surprise. I think it's key for parents to be involved. But I understand that many times they cannot, uh, because some of them want to be working 2 or 3 jobs.
Yeah.
So I know for some of them are hard. Uh, to some extent, uh, some parents may have the privilege of being involved because they have the means. And I've seen that in my schools. Usually, when you see parents groups, uh, they tend to belong to a certain group uh, because they have the privilege of having a higher income and they have the time to dedicate to be in parents' organizations.
Yeah.
Uh, Immigrant parents have a harder time to be involved. The involvement is just the discipline, the love that they share with their kids at home. Uh, and you can see that when the kids are in your classroom, basically. You
Yeah.
understand there's a parent who love their kid, who are strict and loving. Uh, but my perspective is different. I understand that parents need to be involved and create a community at large in the school. Uh, but it is so hard for some of them, and some of them are absent. I mean, some kids are being raised by grandparents, or some kids live with friends.
Hmm.
I think it's essential. But being at school teacher for so many years, I understand it's a challenge too
Yeah.
for so many parents. Uh, in my personal experience as a student, my mom owned a store, a mini store in my neighborhood.
Hmm.
And she just attended some meetings, like parent-teacher meetings, but she always told me, the only thing you have to do is study and get good grades. That's your responsibility. But she wasn't always like, like pushing me, she trusted me. And I appreciate that, but I know her level of commitment and responsibility and participation in education was different to that of other parents.
Yeah.
And and for example, when we have parent-teacher conferences in my school, the parents who tend to come to those meetings are the parents of the kids who are great students, 4.0 kids. So you don't see the parents of the kids who are struggling academically or discipline-wise. So you wonder why they're not coming. So in some cases because they can,
Yeah.
and in some cases because there are other factors that are present in their lives, right? So it's important, but the reality tells us that it's not always a day-to-day situation in many
Yes.
cases.
Yes. With so many inequities in systems, with so many different walks of life and experiences being part of societies, it is a challenge. And I think this brings up the point of being innovative in ways in which we connect with caregivers and parents and even with students, right? Being very mindful of the situations and circumstances where we're living and how we are experiencing the difficulties of today, but also trying to be mindful of, okay, if this didn't work out, we need to have more flexibility. If they can't come to the parent teacher meeting, well, can they have a 5-minute phone call with the educator? Like
Yeah.
really making sure that we are stepping outside of the box,
Hmm.
outside of the very strict, sometimes, guardrails that are put in systems, and really focusing on the well-being of the student. And so I'm very
Right.
grateful for you to share these experiences and these examples. We are at 40 minutes, but I still have one more question for you.
Hey, no problem.
I mean, and then maybe some other day we can have coffee and we can talk for hours.
Sure.
But it has been great talking with you. And I'm just wondering, what does the future look like for you as an educator, as a leader? What's next? What are you working on? What brings you joy and hope for the future?
Well, I'm getting close to retiring,
No, don't say
actually.
that.
Uh, so
You're in the classroom.
uh, I know. I always ask myself, can I go a couple more years? I may retire in two more years.
Okay.
I always say, hey, it's time for the newer generations. Uh, but that's it. What I'm gonna do after, I think I wanna be somehow connected to the education world. Uh, but gosh, it's a good question. I still wanna be connected, try to do some community work, be more involved with the Latino community at large and do things there. Probably that kind of stuff. I'm gonna miss it. Yeah, I'm gonna miss my kids. Yeah,
Well,
it's a
there's
good question because
many ways.
I know some teachers. Oh my God, it's my last year. I'm gonna start. The final count, and but I'm gonna miss because you as a teacher, had the opportunity. I would say the privilege to be a part of so many kids' lives, and
Yeah,
I always tell the kid, I saw you as a short freshman, and you're so tall as a senior now. And some of them reach out to you later in life. There's, that you're so happy because they're succeeding in life. There's
yeah.
so many things. I always remember one of my students, also an immigrant kid, who was a troublemaker. Oh my God, he was terrible. But then he reached out to me to Facebook and he said, Kuni, you remember me? I would drive you crazy. So now he's a pilot. He's an
Wow.
instructor. He is, he moved to North Carolina, I think, but he's doing great. And that's the beautiful thing about being a teacher, that you witness growth and the potential of so many kids. And I think that's something I want to miss. But I think we all deserve to explore different things and rest. And I think I want to travel. I want to travel the world.
I
And
love that.
the global mind thing.
Yes.
And yeah, and
Global
Kansas City
curiosity.
is gonna be my home forever. So yeah, and I may do something else. Maybe you
Well, you
guys can
keep
come
us in the loop, but
with
you still have 2 more
NC.
years, you said. I'm going to hold you to that.
Yeah,
No, it's been a pleasure having this just
thank you.
casual and just very comfortable conversation with you. We are grateful for your time. We are hopeful that this live stream will reach many, many, many people, many educators seeking those safe spaces, those spaces where they can share their experience, share their challenges too, but always elevating the importance of being an educator that is present, that is globally minded, and that is very aware about everything that impacts their students' lives. Maestro Joaquin Cuni, thank you very much for your time, for your impact, not just in your schools, but in the community and the state as a state leader. And we're very grateful for your dedication to students, to kids and youth. Thank you so much. And we'll be talking soon.
All right, thank you.
Hasta
Bye,
luego.
everyone.
Muchas gracias.
Adios.
Adios. Ciao.